All right. And everyone is streaming in now. It is just 9 a.m. I'm Albert Flynn DeSilver. This is Cultivating Creativity, Wisdom, and Compassion in Difficult Times, also known as the Wednesday Meditation Class. And the way this works is that we will sit for, well, first I'm going to start with a couple of announcements that I'd love to share with you, with some resources and some ideas and upcoming classes, etc. And then we will sit for about 10 minutes, 15 minutes at the most. And this will be a guided meditation, and there'll be some periods of silence. And then I will talk for about 10 minutes or so, sharing a particular topic that is sort of up for me and hopefully for you, thinking always in terms of the larger context and what we're all kind of confronting in the world. And I want to thank so many of you from the Friday class. I don't know if I've mentioned it as much here in the Wednesday class, but I do have a survey that Audrey might be posting for us in the chat bar. And really just getting a sense, wanting to serve you as clearly and efficiently and successfully as possible. And so we put together a little survey. It takes about 3 minutes. Just some questions about things that you're challenged with, things that you'd love to get support around, classes that you're interested in, all that kind of stuff. And so if you are willing to take a minute or two to fill that out, that'd be super helpful. Even if you've not been coming to the classes that much, it's still very helpful in general terms of how we can support you better. And that's also where I'm garnering some of just the ideas of, for topics to share. So I'll give a little talk. After that, we're going to open things up to the community, and I would love to hear from all of you based on your experience with the topic at hand. And so it is 9:02. Welcome, welcome. Again, Albert Flynn DeSilver here. This is Cultivating Creativity, Wisdom, and Compassion in Difficult Times, also known as our Wednesday meditation class. So some special fun announcements. This very Saturday, we're doing an insights, editing wisdom class. So if you are a writer and you've been gathering material, you've been journaling, and you're trying to figure out like, oh, what do I do with all this material? How do I structure it into some sort of cohesive whole that could be presentable either to myself or a larger audience? This is the class. This is going to be so much fun. I'm really excited because editing is, it's one of my great challenges and loves. And as the saying goes, all writing is rewriting. And so there's really no, like I think we have in our minds, this sort of, some of us really love editing and look forward to it. I was talking to Audrey about this the other day, and she is like really just looks for that editing, can't wait to get to the editing portion of the writing program. And I, on the other hand, I love the generative. I love the free writing. I love just getting all my shitty first draft out onto the page. And I have a harder time with sitting down and going back over stuff and rewrite. Anyways, we're going to talk about all that on Saturday. It's a 3-hour low-cost class from 10 a.m. to 1 p.m. Pacific time. It will be recorded. So if it doesn't fit with your time schedule, I will send you the recording and any worksheets that go along with it, so you can just take the class at your own pace. So that's happening on this Saturday of the 14th. There's a link there in the chat bar, and you are welcome to join us. It's going to be really great. We already have a whole bunch of people signed up. And the survey, what else do I want to tell you? Oh, I'm interviewing, some of you are familiar with my relatively new, it's not a podcast, although at some point we might pull the audio out, but it's really a video cast that I'm doing for the YouTube channel, interviewing best-selling authors, spiritual teachers, and artists. And I'm calling it Waking Up in Daily Life. So far, we've interviewed some really amazing people, including Byron Katie, Liz Gilbert from a couple of years ago, She's not on video, but she's on audio. Um, and I think we just released the Beowulf Sheehan interview. And Beowulf Sheehan, if you haven't, what a great name, right? Beowulf Sheehan. He's a photographer, amazing guy who's photographed almost exclusively writers his entire career. A really interesting guy who has photographed everyone from Toni Morrison to little old me. And that's a really fun talk. And I'm interviewing just after our class today. I'm not going to tell you who she is, but she's a legend of the women's movement, of storytelling, of convening spiritual teachers from all over the world. And she's just written a new book about all around when women are the storytellers. So that interview is happening today. It won't be released probably for another month or so. But that's something to look forward to as a surprise. So I will tell you, I did get to interview Ruth Oseki, the great best-selling author, Ruth Oseki, who wrote A Tale for the Time Being. That's going to be released in December. And she is so awesome. We had such an amazing conversation that we're going to do a part 2, because we only got to, like, in an hour, we only got to just like the tiniest little nuggets of brilliance from her. So look out for that in the new year. I think that's let me mention on December 5th, is that right? Do I have that right? December 5th is a Saturday, the first Saturday in December. We're doing a community writing and mindfulness class. And basically it's going to be like the Friday class, except for 3 hours. So times 3. And we'll go much deeper with the writing exercises, and we'll have a whole bunch of time to share. So a lot of times we end up getting cut off on Friday. And so I wanted to have an extended class in which we could really go a little bit deeper, both with the writing and with the sharing. So that's happening on December 5th. You're welcome to register for that as well. 9:07. And welcome, welcome, and good morning once again. Let's sit. Let's gather ourselves. If you have a pen or notebook or piece of paper, you can just put that aside and turn off any beeping, dinging things that might distract you. You don't necessarily have to sit in front of your screen. You can sit in a way that is comfortable and at ease. And I always like to begin by settling myself with my feet flat on the floor, letting my hands rest easily in my lap, letting my eyes close gently, and beginning with a single deep breath inward through the nose, and exhaling out through the mouth, allowing this to be a way to ground ourselves and to bring our attention from the external world into the internal world. For the next few moments, we will be cultivating our inner vision, our inner wisdom. And so we let go of any external noise that might have been happening as we got to this class. And knowing that for this time, for the next 10 minutes or so, that we can completely let go into our breathing bodies. What a relief to know that there's nothing to figure out. There's nothing to get right. There's nothing to understand. There's nothing to manage or manipulate. We're simply bringing our awareness and our attention to the breathing body. And allowing the mind to settle, if it feels like settling. But ultimately, we're simply becoming aware, just noticing, becoming curious. What is the state of this heart, mind, body in this moment? With each breath, we create a little bit more spaciousness, a little more self-compassion and loving kindness. To accept whatever arises with that open heart of love and patience. Simply breath in and breath out. Now, after a few minutes, you might notice your mind beginning to wander, which is simply what minds do. They like to generate thought and fantasy, dream, and anticipation. With the sound of my voice, simply bring your awareness back to the breathing body. Simply back to feeling a few breaths right here in the center of your experience. Simply allowing things to be as they are. If tears arise, let tears flow. If joy arises, let joy flow. If sleepiness arises, let sleepiness flow. If excitement arises, let excitement flow. Simply being with the reality of your direct experience, breath by breath, moment by moment, with an open heart of compassion and loving kindness. And again, if your mind has wandered off or drifted off into planning, remembering, fantasizing, dreaming, just with the sound of my voice, bring your awareness back to the breathing body for these last couple of minutes of the meditation. And if you would, bring your hands, both hands, to your heart center. Just breathing into that heart center for a minute. Breathing into that space of vulnerability and openness. As if to tune in a little more deeply to your direct experience of the breathing body. And as you bring your awareness and attention to this space, can you offer yourself some loving kindness? Just silently to yourself, whatever words arise for you, whatever soothing words as a little lullaby or prayer, or however it comes out silently in your heart, mind. What kind of words of kindness can you offer yourself this morning? What kind of a blessing? And let's take another single deep breath inward through the nose. And exhale out through the mouth. And with that, releasing your prayer, your poem, your gift of self-love to the wind. And when you're ready, you can open your eyes and come back to our virtual Zendo, as it were, or space of awakening. Good morning, everyone. And this morning, I wanted to talk about discipline and what that word discipline really means. I think for many of us human beings, we come up against this concept of discipline in regards to meditation, mindfulness practice, in regards to writing, creativity practice. And so I thought it would be interesting to tinker with this term a little bit, discipline. And I have a curious relationship myself with this word. There's different connotations, right? To be disciplined, it could be a verb. And I grew up in a household with a very a disciplinarian caretaker, a governess, as a matter of fact. I know, right? You probably haven't heard that term in a long time, governess. She was evil and really rigid and brutal. And some of you know my story of the abuse and all that. But that word discipline kind of was imprinted on me from a young age. And so I never had a great association with it. And then I equated sort of like accomplishment in the world with that fear, or that dynamic of discipline. Because if I fell into that regiment, then I would get my ass kicked, is sort of how my my mind worked around it. So I had to I had to sort of reinvent a new definition or re-see that word in a new way. Discipline. And I knew that in terms of healing, on some level, healing took discipline for me. I had to keep showing up. And this, particularly around mindfulness and meditation, when I got wind of meditation in my 20s, I was just so blown away that there was this practice of sitting still, of being still and breathing. And that somehow this would like, transform my awareness, transform my understanding of the world and myself. Like, I couldn't really grok that, but I did notice as I observed the teachers and other people doing this practice that they seemed a lot more calm. They seem more calm at certain times, and then at other times they seem more energized. They seem to be activated and present in the world. And not just to the good stuff and the happy stuff, but they seem to be able to show up in a way that was courageous, even in a state of vulnerability. And I found that very striking. And so I started rethinking this notion of discipline. And I also understood that this relationship to just sitting in silence and sitting still was not just about peace and rainbows and unicorns and ease and grace, because I noticed in my own experience right off the bat that just like my nervous system finally got quiet, and all of a sudden just all the sadness, all the grief, all the terror just started like unraveling from the inside out. And yet there was this container that my teachers also assured me of, that there was this container spiritually, psychically, emotionally, that could hold all that with love and in community. And so I trusted in that, and it changed everything. And then when I got more immersed in my creativity, I of course, it's hard not to notice that people who are sort of successful in the world of creativity were just like obsessed with it. We're doing it all the time. And I had always just had this, I was like very distractible, and my mind was always going in a million different directions, and like, how do you stay focused? And of course, then meditation became one of those ways of calming the mind and being able to cultivate creativity, to cultivate a sense of staying focused, even when the mind wanted to go off on its little tangent. And so the practice continued, and I became more and more curious about the entity of the self. And especially when I started to see that I wasn't my story. I wasn't my story of abuse and addiction. I wasn't my story of regrets and poor behavior. That there was something else much larger going on here. And that to some extent, I could create a new reality for myself. I could create a new story. And it depended on where I put my attention. And attention, I ultimately came to understand as energy. And I had this sense like, oh, well, those people out there, they have more energy. They were born with more energy, or they were born with more discipline. Like, I don't know how I can get more discipline. It took me a while to realize that, no, that energy is in here, but discipline is in here. It's cultivated from within. It's not out there. And so I kept checking in to see if that was true in my own experience. And lo and behold, it seemed to be true. And also this kind of counterintuitive notion of exercise. When you're sort of tired and fatigued, you don't feel like exercising. Well, the best thing to do is actually to go and expend energy, which ends up cultivating energy, right? And you know this if you're a regular exerciser. Not only that, there's so many other benefits, right? The clarity of mind, the being, especially if you exercise out in nature, just the imprint of the natural world, the imprint of the sky and then the clouds and the trees and the animal energy, allowing that all to be part of recreating a larger, what's the word I'm looking for? A larger sort of portion of energy in our own bodies. And so that becomes the practice. And yet we do get distracted and we do get pulled away. But attention is our friend. Attention is our friend. And you know what else is our friend is completion. Some of you have heard me talk about little wins. And by little wins, I mean just completing things. And it could be, by completion, I mean completing a 5-minute meditation. That's completion. That's success. And when we do that enough times, then it becomes habitual. And there are these little points of celebration in our consciousness that, yes, I did this. You know, I wanted to do this. I said I was going to do this. And I sat for 5 minutes. That's awesome. And so it kind of gives us this incentive to return to the cushion. Not that every time we sit on the cushion is going to be a good time, right? As I've already mentioned, but that ultimately we know that there's goodness to be found there, that there's energy to be found there, that there's transformation to be found there, that there's creativity to be found there. And by there, I mean here. I mean here, I mean here, I mean here, I mean the large here, the large vast here, that is us. And so it becomes this practice of returning, of continually returning to the cushion. And if we're a creative person, then that means a process of returning to the page, if you're a writer, or returning to the studio, if you're a painter, the canvas, the sheet of paper, the dance floor, whatever it is, whatever that creative space is. And sometimes we just need to show up and be available and not necessarily do anything, but show up for that time. It's not like we have to constantly be taking action, although that does propel us forward. There are periods where we do need to ruminate, to be, to allow, to absorb. But showing up for that possibility is very powerful. And returning to the little wins. After a while, those little wins, they accumulate so much that it just becomes habit. And by showing up again and again and again, you accumulate material. In the case of creativity, in the case of writing, you end up accumulating a lot of material. Then you have something to work with, right? In terms of showing up over and over and over again to the cushion, you don't have material, you have the absence of material. You have spaciousness, which is a capacity to be available to fresh insight and revelation, to be available for the inevitable onslaught of emotional experience, and that it no longer is a problem, but that you have this spaciousness to manage and to be with it and to understand it in a larger context. And that's wisdom. That's wisdom that comes from discipline. That's creativity that comes from discipline, from showing up again and again. Repetition is our friend. Completion is our friend. I wrote something here about pattern and routine. And also, you know, it's kind of helpful is an element of consequence. I was thinking about that too. There's this subtle element of consequence. Like, what will happen if I don't do this? If I don't show up for the page? You know, I've been saying that I've been wanting to write this book for years and years and years. Do I or do I not? And what will I, what's that Mary Oliver quote? Something about what will you do with this something precious life? This small and precious, I can't remember the quote. It's this just really beautiful line about just like not having regret, you know, just really realizing that there's this that we are a generative, creative being, and that the world needs our expression, and that we don't want to exit this life without sharing that with the world, without showing up for that sense of beauty that is unique to ourselves. And so we keep returning, we keep showing up out of curiosity, out of wonder, with a devotion to beauty. And then the habit takes hold and it becomes embedded. And at some point we can't do it. Like, I can't not write at this point in my life. I can't not write. And I don't ever know what's going to happen with it. I don't really need to. I just love the process. And it's so embedded in my being that it becomes part of my life. And the same thing is true with the meditation. It's so nourishing, it's so yummy, even when it's terrible and terrifying, you know? There's still that element of nourishment there. And so, discipline. What does that word discipline mean to you? It is 9:37, and I have chattered on a little longer than normal. I want to thank everybody so much for being here, for being disciplined and showing up. Really a great joy to hear from all of you, and just to feel your presence. And so may you have a fabulous week. I hope to see you on Friday. And think about what you would like to give more attention to or more intention to this week, whether that's a creative pursuit or anything else in your life, and have that kind of carry you forth into the week. With much love and many blessings, and I will see you on Friday or next week. Thanks, everybody.